Okay, well, it's 4 after the hour now, so let's get started. Can everyone see my screen? All right, great. Okay, well, thank you all for joining our info session today. I'm Alyssa Kelly. I'm a technology researcher and analyst with Foresight based in Vancouver. And I am manager of the SDG Connect Challenge service. I'm really happy to be talking about the service today and provide the opportunity for you all to ask a few questions about it. Here's the agenda for today's session. All times here are in Universal Coordinated Time, or GMT. It's a bit earlier out here in Vancouver, but for the sake of time zones, I just picked that as a standard. The session will be recorded and available for distribution for those who couldn't make the time, just so everyone's aware. So what's going to happen is I'll first give an overview of SDG Connect and what the process of running a challenge involves. We'll then talk about results of past challenges, and we'll hear from two of your colleagues at the TCS who've joined us today. We have Patrizia Giuliotti of the Rome office and Richard Higginson of the Copenhagen office, who will speak to their experiences running challenges with Cytham and Vestas through SDG Connect. After that, there will be the opportunity to ask questions of all of us. So without any more delay, let's get started. So for those of you who aren't familiar with who we are, Foresight is Canada's cleantech ecosystem accelerator. We bring partners together to identify, commercialize, and adopt clean technologies. And our programs and services run in 5 areas of opportunity. So we run accelerator programs that help innovators and ventures grow. We host innovation challenges such as SDG Connect to match industry with clean tech solutions. We conduct research to build a knowledge base with market intelligence, industry roadmaps, and data relevant to the sector. And we also build strategic partnerships and clusters to bring ecosystems together for collaboration. And here are a few of our metrics. We've supported over 700 SMEs since 2015, 6,270 green jobs, and run 30 open challenges and counting. So what is SDG Connect? I will give you a bit of a background. It was started to create international connections for Canadian clean tech companies in an efficient and affordable way that's also low carbon, with the added goal of helping large companies reach their sustainable development goals. And that is our mission, to deliver made in Canada innovations to global companies. So what we do is connect international businesses who are looking to address their sustainability to Canadian companies with clean tech solutions through open innovation challenges. So basically, we're trying to streamline the exporting process. Clean tech companies have the chance to present directly to the right people at interested companies, all with little to no carbon footprint. Of course, COVID has negatively impacted clean tech. Not a lot of sectors were immune. And a survey did show that the negative effects in the sector were largely felt in deal flow and financing opportunities. So we scaled up SDG Connect to undertake more challenges, create more connections, and keep that international momentum going. A few key points before I dive into what the process looks like. So we have scaled up our capacity from our initial challenge service program to run multiple challenges through streamlining efficiencies. So there's no capacity limit on our side per year. We can take on as many interested partners as available with available funding. The service was also developed with the TCS originally, so it is tailored to support TCS deal flow KPIs. And we do provide documentation and tracking throughout the process to support your metrics reporting. We work with you to ensure we're on the same page, and lessons learned from past challenges that we've run has ensured we're tracking the correct information. We also utilize our network of partnerships across Canada to reach a broad audience of clean tech companies. So we're not just West Coast focused, although a lot of our organization is based in Vancouver. We are a pan-Canada organization. We also use a standardized evaluation process to present those final recommended solutions to the challenger host companies. And there is an opportunity to have multiple partners involved, particularly within the TCS. So it is a clean tech service. It's geared towards clean tech, but other sector-focused trade commissioners can be looped in, as many companies in other sectors may have an interest in clean tech solutions for their operations. So sectors such as mining, forestry, and infrastructure, for example. So it is a flexible service. And I will now walk you through what running a challenge will look like. Here is our general overview of what the standard process contains, starting with the official launch of the challenge, which is usually the signing of a contract between the partner, which is the international TCS office, and Foresight, with a company on board and a challenge agreed on. There's often a few meetings and discussions before this official launch while the company is brought on board and while we iron out the challenge topic. But after this contract is signed, about 4 weeks later, the challenge opens, which is the recruit phase. The challenge will open for about 8 weeks while we recruit applicants and market the challenge to our Canadian SME networks. We also host a webinar during this time for Canadian clean tech companies where we introduce the challenge and allow them to ask questions of the challenger company. Once all the applications are in, after that 8 weeks, the evaluation process takes about 4 weeks. We then select finalists and they pitch their solution to the company and a winner is selected. So the whole process takes around 5 months or 20 weeks to complete. And this is something to keep in mind when planning for a challenge and ensuring the challenge takes place within the fiscal year for which it is budgeted. So it's a 5-month challenge, and then there is also some prep time at the beginning. So something to keep in mind when planning. And now I did mention that this is a collaborative process. So we, as in the partners, Foresight and the TCS, work together throughout the process. The large portion of the work is our responsibility, but here's an overview of what specific tasks the TCS partner will typically complete. So the partner will recruit a company with an interest in running a challenge within your country. You'll contribute to the development of the challenge topic, but Foresight will define the challenge in an engaging way. We'll map the Canadian landscape, and we'll also develop the marketing strategy and collateral. We'll both utilize our networks to recruit applicants, and Foresight will do a more comprehensive marketing campaign. We will interact with prospective applicants to provide guidance and coaching as well. Foresight will do the first round of evaluations with high-level input from the partner, and we will coordinate the pitch events while the partner will attend the events. And we conduct the overall administration and project management. On your side, the administration will involve regular update meetings at the cadence that we agree upon at the beginning and putting together the contract as well. And the overall timing, the amount of hours, is reflected more in the budget, which I will get to shortly. First, I did mention the service is tailored to support deal flow, so a bit more about how we make that happen. The program was designed to produce results, and that is what we want to deliver. So we leverage our network of executives and residents and companies to help recruit solutions, and we tap them for advice on proposals where necessary. So we do have a lot of access to industry experts outside of Foresight to ensure we're making those impactful partnerships happen. And we know how important tracking metrics of deal flow is to the TCS, so we ensure to report on the number of companies referred and their contact details. So that's the number of attendees to the webinar, the number of applications received. And we also do a 6 and 12-month follow-up to track outcomes and see how partnerships progress. And we'll keep in touch during that as well. And once the host company has selected a winner or multiple, they enter into exploratory partnership discussions. And one of the outcomes we use to frame the potential of where we see an effective partnership happening is to do a SWOT analysis with the company. And this will be provided to the TCS for KPI purposes as well, but it can also be used to attract further support if we wish to take that route. And on that note, there is opportunities to scale these challenges. So it is a standardized process as we went through earlier, but there is an opportunity to build something bigger if that's of interest as well. So we can leverage our executives and residents for solution development. We can scale to pilot project status if that is something of interest. There's an option to have a cash prize for finalists or a voluntary contribution from the challenging company if we'd like to kind of up the ante on what kind of applications we receive and put a little bit more effort into it. So there's opportunities to scale this. It is flexible as well. And the challenge budget is here. So it is $15,000 per challenge, and that is in Canadian dollars, and it is funded by the partners. So that would be the TCS in this situation. There's a breakdown of the hours and the time commitment needed by each party here. So we went through the details of the tasks, but you can see Foresight's hours are a bit more in depth than what we require of the partner as well. And one of the attracting features of SDG Connect is that there is no cost to companies apart from their time. And if this isn't something that's possible for your current budget, we wanted to flag this for future budget planning purposes, but there are a couple of options if budget's limited. As I previously mentioned, there is an opportunity to partner with another trade commissioner in your office from another sector if they could attract a potential company from their industry interested in clean tech solutions. There's also the possibility that the company could fund the challenge, particularly if they're very interested in participating. And I know that one of the key attracting features is that there's no cost to companies apart from their time, but that is a possibility. And if you do bring a company that's willing to fund their own challenge, we will still partner with your office to share the data and results for metrics purposes. And I will flag that the cost for a company to fund a challenge starts at $20,000 for industry. And now that you have an understanding about how the process works, let's talk about past challenges and some results to date. So we have run more than I'll cover here today, but for the sake of time and for availability, we'll talk about 3 of our past challenges with OMV, SIPEM, and Vestas. So first is an overview of our challenge with OMV and the TCS in Austria. Unfortunately, Suzanne Noblock, the trade commissioner we partnered with, is out of the office this week, so she's unable to join us, but I'll just give a brief summary of what it looks like. So for those of you who don't know, OMV is a large energy, oil and gas and petrochemical company, one of the largest in Austria, based in Vienna. They had 2 challenge topics. They had one on hydrogen production through methane pyrolysis and another on 2nd generation biofuel production. Some of the outcomes, the metrics tracked for this challenge were 26 companies registered for the webinar, and they had 11 applicants. And at the close of the challenge, OMV entered into discussions with Econa Power for the methane pyrolysis challenge, and Ensign Pyrogenesis and Rainforest Energy for the 2nd generation biofuel challenge. At this point in time, OMV is furthest along in pursuing their partnership with Ensign. Due to the nature of the technology involved, the implementation does move slowly. So OMV expects preparations to take about 3 years, and they're prepping for test runs to start in 2023. So at the moment, they have their first business case evaluations happening, and they're signing an NDA. Next, I'll briefly introduce the SIPEM challenge, and then I'll pass it on to Patrizia to talk about her experience and the outcomes. So with the TCS in Italy, we ran a challenge with SIPEM, a major engineering and construction company based in Milan. The challenge was looking for solutions enabling the green hydrogen value chain with 3 focus areas, looking at fully decarbonized production of hydrogen, storage and transport, and utilization. The winner was a company called Hydrogen in Motion. They're a proprietary hydrogen storage technology, so related to focus area 2, and They are still working together. They've issued a letter of support to Hydrogen in Motion, and they are an earlier stage company. So as their technology progresses, they're keeping in touch. And now I'll hand it off to Patrizia to talk to her experience. And if we do have questions for her or for Richard when he speaks, we have lots of time at the end to go through those. So Patrizia, please go ahead and speak to your experience. Oh, Patrizia, I think you're on mute still.
Yes, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Alisa. As discussed with you earlier and also with SAIPEM over the last year and a half, I can say that my experience was very positive. And I look forward to doing another one. I was in discussion with another Italian companies who is also very interested in something like that. So I myself look forward to doing another challenge of this kind as a pilot project, of course. And due to the pandemic, we had to adjust to many things, and notwithstanding all of these things, we can say that it went really smoothly and within the time frame. So it was the pilot, so it was around 8 months, including the pandemic. So it was really good. And in terms of clients contacted and metrics, also I got very good results with 5 opportunities pursued. And 1 EOF, so an economic outcome facilitated, although the only caveat here on which I wish to warn my colleagues, the Trade Commissioner colleagues, is that it is very important to also assess the client technology readiness level. So in terms of what they can provide in terms of the Canadian client, because in the case of Hydrogen in Motion, in the end, they were still at a lower level of technology readiness, and therefore, even though there was this letter of support from SAIPEM, Hydrogen in Motion was still looking for investment, and SAIPEM was not in a position to, put capital into the company at this point in time, into the research. So that's the only caveat I would say, but for the rest, I mean, Foresight was very good in keeping everybody informed and coordinating all the works with the Canadian companies and also with the Italian buyer. If there are questions, I can respond maybe at a later time, but or my colleagues know how to reach me. Unfortunately, I have to leave you because I had another call at 4, but we have to do a test now at 3:30. So unfortunately, I have to leave you.
That's no problem. We'll follow up if any questions come up as well. But thank you very much for talking to your experience, Patrizia. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And last but not least, we will talk about the Vestas Challenge run with the TCS in Denmark. So Vestas is a large wind turbine design, manufacturing, and installation company. They had 2 challenges as well based on turbine blade recycling and turbine blade design. Vestas selected ZeloWorks and Point Source Processing as the challenge winners. And their partnerships continue to advance. They signed NDAs with the winners. ZeloWorks has also received a written letter of support from Vestas. And at the moment, ZeloWorks' technology is still in development, which is the limiting factor in their partnership, but they are expected for big things to happen next year. So I will hand it off now to Richard from the Denmark office to give an overview of his experience and outcomes.
Yeah, hello everyone. I hope you can hear and see me fine. So with Vestas, this started in May last year. If I'm not wrong, I think here in Denmark, we were the first SDG challenge to do with Foresight. I think we were the pioneers in this. It started with a meeting I held with Vestas on the edge of the cleantech forum Europe event in May last year, and where Vestas said that they were always interested in looking for some new technologies related to wind turbine design as well as wind turbine recycling. For anyone who may not know, actually, the recycling of wind turbines is actually a rather big issue, and you may find some place in North America that there's graveyards of thousands of wind turbines, as technology does not really exist still around the world much, which is very helpful in the recycling of turbines once they've been once they've reached their lifespan. So we discussed with Vestas that we would be able to try and find some technologies in Canada related to wind energy. And to be quite honest, we didn't expect much, not in the sense that we didn't know that there'll be many companies in Canada with the right skills for Vestas, and here in Copenhagen, as well as colleagues in the regional office, and as well as I think Foresight at the very beginning, everyone was a bit unsure whether we'd really find much. So we were very pleasantly surprised when in November last year, when the challenges were launched, and we held a webinar with Vestas and Foresight, which we presented the challenges that Vestas was looking for, or Vestas was looking to have solved. We were very surprised and happy when we had 75 companies attend. So that was a really good start. So Foresight were really excellent in finding these companies, and I would say that they were the ones who did the bulk work in terms of advertising as well, even though of course TCS and others did advertise too. So we started with 75 companies. During that webinar in November last year, myself, Jacob at Foresight, and Vestas all presented the challenge and what we could do and answer questions. I was a bit nervous at the beginning because I remember at the very beginning there was almost no questions, but then I think one person asked and then many more came, and then we had 45 minutes of really good questions actually from Canadian companies wanting to know more about how they could get involved. This led to, if I remember rightly, 16 applications for the challenges from Canadian companies, which Vestas looked over in January. Of those 16, 4, if I remember rightly, were finally chosen to give a full pitch to Vestas, and then as Lisa said, there were 2 winners. Vestas had were very open to what technologies came their way. They only needed a technology ready level of 3. So they were looking for very new technologies, which was really helpful to us because a lot of the companies we were working with were very new ones. Some were basically spin outs from universities. Some many only had very small teams, so it works in our favor very much that Vestas didn't need very highly developed technologies from very large companies. I can say that this experience of working with Foresight was really good, as well as Vestas, and I think as well that it's really worked well for us in Denmark because Vestas is a really key company for us to work with, especially with clean technology. It's also one of the largest companies in Denmark, and in an environment where we find ourselves now, where green technologies and green energy are really key to solving many of the problems that we hear about every day. Having a good relationship with a company like Vestas is really good for Canada and really good for us at the embassy. So the good cooperation with Foresight has really been great there. I also want to add that even though that 2 winners were chosen and they signed their NDAs, Vestas are actually interested in talking with all of them. I think Vestas are still in contact with many others, and I think they even potentially signed NDAs with more. So they've had a really good experience, and I'm already in touch with Vestas about doing a 3rd challenge with them about something else, whatever they would be interested in. So I think the concept works really well, and I can also say that I've also spoken to other corporates as well as maybe like some organizations in Denmark here which would be interested in doing more like this. We think it works really well. As Patricia said, it's also really good for KPIs. It was really in a year where most of our work got turned upside down because of COVID. It was really, really great to have some really good wins on KPI wise through the challenges. Many partnerships pursued, for example, economic, I forget the word, EFs, the TCs. economic partnerships facilitated, and so that was really fantastic. And yeah, and if anybody has questions, they can totally ask. Of course, I think because we were the first one, there was quite a lot of internal processes we had to go through. We had to kind of explain to lots of people what's going on. A lot of phone calls with lots of different departments. But I think now there's an internal process also more smoothed out. That's went really well. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to hopefully doing more. And any questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Richard. That's great to hear. And on that note, we can talk about questions now. So if anybody does have anything to ask, please go ahead and feel free to unmute yourselves and ask your question.
Well, if nobody else has any questions, Richard, if you don't mind, I'm going to pipe up here. With the, you said that there were further companies exploring, that Vestas was interested in talking to, and I know they had 2 challenges and 2 winners. I'm just wondering how easy is it for a company like Vestas to multitask on something like this, to look at multiple challenges? Was it, and I guess just how complicated did it end up being running the multiple challenges with multiple winners as opposed to just a single track?
I don't think it. It didn't feel like it was difficult. I mean, it was still one company, and many of the companies on the Danish side and on the Canadian side, they were obviously different, and the companies were offering to effectively 2 different technologies, but it didn't really matter. I mean, we all kind of put it all together, and they're working in the same sectorial space. So it didn't feel overwhelming or problematic to have been working with more than one challenge at once. In fact, I think if we'd done 3 challenges with Vestas at once, it also would have been fine. It didn't feel like a big issue. So if anyone's thinking about that, I would say don't feel worried that it's going to be too much to take 2 at once.
Cool, thanks.
Hi, this is Nadia from Madrid. Thank you for the presentation. I think it was very interesting. Only a quick question, how long do you usually have to start preparing this with the company? Because you described the process in terms of the calendar after they sign the contract, but just an estimation.
Yeah, so it really depends on the company. It can range from a couple weeks to a few more weeks, but if it depends how, I guess, on board and ready to go they are. If they have an idea in mind of what they want to do for their challenge and they're really excited about it, things can move a lot quicker. If they're kind of just learning about SDG Connect, they're not exactly sure what the challenge could potentially be on, we will work with them to help them figure that out, but that takes a little bit longer. So it can be anywhere from, 3 or 4 weeks to 6 or 7. So it just depends on the company's readiness and they're ready to go, or if they need a little bit more preparation time.
Okay.
Yeah, I can also add that for us, I think it was about 10 months went from the very first meeting with Vestas to the challenge being done. But I mean, it was maybe a good, but most that was lost time. I mean, we could have done it way quicker. I think boiling down to it, maybe there was around a 6-week period where applications were open from the companies, and Vestas maybe had like a 1 month from receiving the main bulk applications to choosing their 4. And then another month or ish went by from going from 4 to choosing their 2. So we could have done it way quicker, but it was also the beginning of everything. And actually, to be really honest, when on the very first conversation I had with Vestas, I didn't pitch them like the SDG challenges. I just pitched them like, I'll hear like, let's what technology you're looking for from Canada. I'll see what I can find. And then the Foresight challenge just became a method for doing that.
Okay, and just another quick question. Are the companies forced, or do they have to compromise in selecting a winner, or could they decide that in the end solutions work?
Yeah, they can decide. They're not forced to do anything. They're not forced to sign a contract or anything. So it's really up to them what they decide to do. So they can choose to select multiple, or if it just didn't work out, then they can choose to not proceed with any of them as well.
In our case, they were, in a way, you could argue they were all winners because they all got to pitch to Vestas. Vestas is interested in being in contact with all of them afterwards and keeping an eye on how they all come along. I think maybe if we did it again, we maybe would pitch a little bit differently from our point of view. But yeah, and there was never guaranteed at any point that like Vestas has to choose somebody. They could. We had one. I think there was even one company at one point which they chose, and then we had to take out. So no, there was no pressure, I think.
Thanks, Nadia. That was a great question. Anything else from anyone?
Hi, Alisa, it's Dan here. Just a quick question. This will help us with the planning for the next fiscal year. So in terms of the budget, you mentioned $15,000 is the cost. Of course, I'm going to warn everyone that there's also the GST, which kicks in, which is 5%. So that brings the cost to something like $16,505. Can we guarantee that this rate remains the same throughout the whole fiscal year? Again, for planning purposes, because we don't want to make allocations at the beginning of the year. And then, should there be a further increase, then, we don't have funds right away. And given the 5 months delivery of the program, we don't want to create any issues for our missions undertaking it.
Of course, and that's a great question. Yes, we can confirm that it will be $15K for the duration of the fiscal year.
And a quick related question, what would be the cost if a mission would choose to do a back-to-back connect challenge? So 2 connect challenges in one, or one following the other? I think we had a case last year.
Yeah, that's a situation that we can definitely have a discussion about. Typically 15K per challenge, but if it's maybe a particular situation, we can have discussions about that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I would jump in on that. I would actually differentiate between the 2 scenarios you described. If they're doing twin challenges at the same time, then I believe what we've done in the past is a 50% more for the second challenge. So we're add 7,500, so I guess that would be 22,500 for 2 challenges if you're running them simultaneously. If you're running them back to back, there might be a very slight cost decrease, but it wouldn't be significant because we would have to run through all the processes a second time, as opposed to running the 2 on top of each other, when then there are savings, and we would obviously pass those on to you.
So you would suggest doing them at the same time?
If you have 2 challenges and you want to run both of them, better off to run them simultaneously, yes.
Okay, and it would be 22,500.
Yeah, it's 50% off for the second one. So yeah, 22,500.
Understood. Plus the GST.
Yes.
Thank you. Of course.
Thanks, Dan. Any others? Okay, well, I have put my email in the chat. If you'd like to talk further about running an SDG Connect challenge, please reach out. If any other questions come up, please feel free to reach out again. And if you have interested colleagues who'd like to watch the recording of the video, this will be sent around afterwards. And feel free to share that with your colleagues as well. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Richard, for speaking to your experience, and to Patrizia, who had to leave early. But again, if anything else comes up, please reach out. We're all available to answer all your questions. And thank you again for joining us today.